As you heard in that report, Russians were supposed to go back to work on Tuesday, an order given by the president, just as the country registered a record 5.5% increase in infections in the previous 24 hours. And not only do Putin's spokesman and prime minister have COVID-19, so too the culture minister, the minister for construction, and his deputy. Dana Lewis is a journalist who's lived and worked in Russia. Dana, I understand that you actually know Dmitry Peskov, Vladimir Putin's spokesman, personally. All these senior advisors to the president testing positive for COVID-19. Has the virus gone out of control in Russia because of something the government has done or not done?
Well, I guess it hasn't gone any more out of control than it has at the White House, and you can make all sorts of comparisons to Britain, where the prime minister got it. But certainly, I think that they originally tried to downplay this, and it is right on their doorstep. In fact, one of the investigative sites carried a very extensive and very specific report over the weekend, where they talked about some of the presidential security service that checks people on the way into the Kremlin, that one of those people has died, and he was calling an ambulance for 2 days and was unable to get any health care, and he passed away. And apparently that's a big scandal inside the Kremlin itself. So Dmitry Peskov, I mean, he is a key advisor to President Putin. These are people that just don't answer the phone. I mean, they program the television stations at nighttime and the newspapers and reach out to the editors. So Peskov down for the count in hospital. Dmitry's a terrific spokesman, and he has been there, for more than a decade. We wish him well in the hospital. But without Peskov, certainly a lot of people are starting to say that maybe President Putin is running a rudderless ship right now, because he himself is in self-isolation outside of the Kremlin, outside of Moscow as we speak.
This fire at that hospital in St. Petersburg is the second hospital fire in under a week in Russia. There's also been news over the past week or so of at least, I believe, 3 Russian doctors falling out of windows of the hospitals where they were working. It sounds sinister, is it?
Well, the ventilators are a tragic event, obviously. In the St. Petersburg hospital, where I think there were 10 people inside the room, 10 COVID-19 patients, and 5 of them have died. Actually, there were 20 people inside the room, 20 patients, and 5 of them have died. I mean, how tragic can that be, that you're in hospital fighting for your life, and then there's a fire with this ventilator? The same ventilator, the same brand of ventilator, went on fire and killed 1 person in Moscow on Saturday. So you have 2 fires within a couple of days of one another involving the same ventilator. And Russia has been bragging about these ventilators, saying that they're on top of them, they're producing them. This company produced 5,000 of them just in the last year, or in the last few months, rather. And in fact, some of them have been shipped to the United States. Yes, more broadly, there is something more sinister going on, in the sense that we are not, doctors and nurses are being told, do not speak to the media, do not speak out, and do not paint a real picture of what's going on there. I know somebody who runs a Nana hospital. It was a maternity hospital in Moscow, and it has been converted strictly to a COVID ward. And they are treating about 300 patients, and they have been told they do not speak out to media. There's no way. They are well funded, but as this man who I've known for a long time notes, you get into the regions, and the hospitals don't have very much money at all, and they are in dire situations at some time. The other thing is, take a look at the numbers. I mean, Russia is reporting a mortality rate of about 13 deaths per million. That is far below the world average of 36 in a very underfunded healthcare system, especially when you get outside of Moscow. The other thing, when you take a look at this almost 250,000 cases, 232,000 cases, they're jumping by 10,000 each day. For the last week and a half, they are obviously not through the peak. They are only reporting 2,000 deaths, but the Moscow mayor has already said that he's probably got 250 to 300,000 cases in Moscow alone. And now they were reporting deaths compared to the same time last year, and they are about 3 times the number of the official estimates. So, just start spreading that, just not in Moscow, but across the regions. And no doubt the death toll is much higher, Adnan, but the only reason you're not going to hear about it is because the way they are reporting those death certificates. The first death from a woman, a 70-year-old woman who died in Russia, was from COVID-19. Then they went and changed the death certificate to a blood clot. So that is how they are changing the death certificates. We will never know how many people are actually dying in Russia.
Dana, thank you so much. Dana Lewis with the latest on what's been happening across Russia with COVID-19.